the grooming gang scandal, the grooming gang's shame, which a lot of people are calling, including Trevor Phillips, who's hardly, a rabid Tory looking to attack the Labour government at every opportunity.
Are real people who actually mean what they say and actually think about things and care about things, because we've seen so little of that for so long.
Well, because also when you see, and some people, they do this the day after a really, really cynical announcement that was made literally 40 minutes away from Parliament closing for Easter, that we're not going to do a grooming gang inquiry.
Labour's leadership is crumbling from within as MPs revolt over the grooming gang inquiry decision. The explosive report from The Times reveals a party in chaos, with prominent figures like Kat Eccles and Dr. Alison Gardner taking direct aim at Starmer's moral authority. While Yvette Cooper insists previous investigations were sufficient, survivors and victims' families are demanding justice that only local inquiries can deliver. The question now isn't just about politics, it's about whether Labour has the courage to face uncomfortable truths or will continue to prioritise political expediency over justice for thousands of victims. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And there's a perfect example. Anybody with a single shred of humanity would look at the issue of these disgusting, evil, mostly Pakistani-led rape gangs.
We're just going to let the local people take care of it. We'll give them the money. They can spend it in any way they want. Jess Phillips, the woman who's meant to be the great saviour of women and girls in this country. And you just think, are they really that cynical? And I'm beginning to wonder if they are.
That are still going on to this day, let's not forget about that, would put politics aside, right? There's plenty of time to hammer the Tories on it later down the line if that's what they want to do.
Remember when Labour presented themselves as the united front of progressive politics? Well, behind that carefully crafted image lies a party in turmoil, with senior figures openly revolting against Starmer's leadership on the critical issue of grooming gang inquiries. The Times report has blown the lid off this internal crisis, revealing explosive WhatsApp exchanges that paint a picture of a leadership desperately trying to maintain control as rebellion brews within its ranks. The messages expose an astonishing level of dissent from four high-profile Labour figures: Kat Eccles, Dr. Alison Gardner, Antonia Bance, and Dan Aldridge, who have formed what amounts to an internal resistance movement against Starmer's position. These aren't fringe backbenchers or unknown party activists. These are influential voices within Labour circles, whose unified opposition signals a profound rupture in party unity on a moral issue that transcends typical political divisions. The intensity of internal discontent is particularly evident in Dr. Gardner's messages, where she expressed frustration about reform Facebook group infiltrators capitalising on Labour's confusion. This remarkable statement reveals something far more troubling than simple policy disagreement. It points to deep factional divides threatening to tear the party apart. Gardner's comments suggest that external forces are exploiting these internal weaknesses, creating a perfect storm of political vulnerability at the worst possible time for Starmer. Meanwhile, Antonia Bance painted a vivid picture of a constituency in revolt, describing her inbox as besieged with accusations from angry constituents demanding answers about Labour's U-turn and apparent retreat from local accountability. This isn't just abstract political theory. It's real voters expressing genuine outrage over Labour's abandonment of victims' needs in favour of political expediency. Perhaps most troubling for party unity is the response from Jess Phillips, who attempted to dismiss these legitimate concerns as merely party political misinformation. This tone-deaf reaction has only widened the chasm between the party's leadership and those demanding accountability, creating a toxic atmosphere where substantive criticism is labelled as disinformation rather than addressed on its merits. The juxtaposition couldn't be more stark. Privately, Labour figures are in open revolt over what they view as a moral failing on child protection, while publicly, the party attempts to present this as manufactured controversy. This isn't merely a policy disagreement. It's a crisis of moral authority that strikes at the very heart of what Labour claims to stand for. This crisis of moral authority extends beyond internal WhatsApp groups and directly to number 10, where panic has visibly set in. When pressed on critical child protection issues, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper's recent BBC performance revealed the government's true priorities. And they're not what you might expect from a party that once claimed to champion the vulnerable. Cooper's defence of Labour's refusal to launch local inquiries into grooming gangs was remarkable for its clinical detachment from the human suffering at the heart of these cases. She argued that the existing 7-year national statutory inquiry was sufficient, that somehow a broad, sweeping investigation could adequately address the specific institutional failures that left children vulnerable in communities like Bradford, Telford and Rotherham for decades. But this argument collapses under minimal scrutiny. The national framework Cooper champions couldn't possibly expose the granular details of local police inaction, institutional cover-ups, and political hesitancy that allowed these horrors to persist. Each affected community has its own unique pattern of systemic failures that demand individual examination. The national inquiry, while extensive, barely scratched the surface of these localised catastrophes. What Cooper and Starmer seem unwilling to acknowledge is that these aren't just abstract policy debates. They're matters of justice for thousands of abuse survivors. These victims have consistently advocated for localised inquiries because they understand what the Labour leadership apparently doesn't, that only by examining the specific circumstances in each affected area can we ensure such failures never happen again. The disconnect between Labour's political calculations and the human cost of their decision is staggering. When survivors speak of needing local investigations, they're talking about exposing the precise mechanisms that failed them, the specific police officers who ignored reports, the exact council meetings where concerns were dismissed, the named social workers who looked the other way. This level of accountability can only come through targeted local inquiries. Starmer now finds himself caught in a trap of his own making. His initial decision appears increasingly motivated by political expediency rather than concern for victims. The subsequent reports that Labour is reconsidering its position only reinforces the impression of a government in crisis, desperately reading the political winds rather than standing on principle. For a man who built his reputation as Director of Public Prosecutions, Starmer's hesitation on pursuing full accountability for these crimes represents a profound test of his leadership. Voters are left wondering, is this the action of a principled public servant, or merely another politician prioritising damage control over justice? And here we arrive at the crux of the matter. Labour's credibility on this sensitive issue now hangs by the thinnest of threads. The public has watched this spectacle unfold with growing concern, recognising that another policy reversal could be the final straw. What's truly at stake extends far beyond political manoeuvring. It cuts to the heart of moral leadership in British politics. The coming days present Starmer with a defining choice: prioritise political optics or demonstrate genuine moral courage for the victims who have already suffered enough. For all the strategic calculations bouncing around Labour HQ, they seem to have forgotten what matters most: that justice delayed is justice denied.
Old stage managed idea of how politicians work. People who are watching this at the moment